read in the parsha of Seitzei, when you go to war against your enemies, and then you notice on the battlefront a woman who seems to be attractive to you. And even if she's not attractive, you desire her, and you take her back from battlefront to take her as a wife. She must undergo a certain process, then she's converted, and then the Torah juxtaposes to that the instant of the rebellious son. So Rashi cites Chazal that what's the juxtaposition? To tell you that ultimately, if you marry this kind of woman, there's a very strong likelihood she will produce this kind of child for you. This rebellious son that will stray, he will steal from his parents money, purchase meat and wine, develop a habit which has to be supported seriously, and hopefully he'll be put to death. This is known as the Ben Tzora Moreh. But what was the cause of what brought this about? Because initially he had noticed this woman on the battlefront, he had taken her as a wife, and so on and so forth. This is the ultimate consequence. And therefore the Torah tries to discourage this kind of relationship, that you should not have this interest in this woman. Now the question is, how would you classify this? Would it be considered inappropriate, but because of circumstances the Torah permits it? Or would you consider it even more than inappropriate? You would consider maybe even Aveira. Except the Torah, because of the circumstance of, as Rashi cites Chazal, that if the Torah would not permit it, he would do it and he would transgress. So therefore the Torah permits it. And that is really the quote which Rashi cites from the Sifri, but the Gemara also tells us this, regarding the woman. Lo dibra Torah elokim neged yitzhara. The Torah is only addressing one's evil inclination. Shemein HaKadosh Baruch Hu matiro. If God would not forbid her, yisa'enu b'yisur, who marry even a forbidden state. Avali nosa, but factually, if he does marry her, sofa liosona, ultimately he will despise her. Shenemar achrov, Torah discusses later, kisei liish, v'sofo laholi mimena ben tzora moreh, and ultimately they will have a child together, which is this rebellious child. Therefore, the Torah juxtaposes all these positions, these various subject matters, one to the other. The Midrash says, "Kiseitzin l'chomo, shanu raboseinu." The Chachomim have learned mitzvah versus mitzvah. One mitzvah engenders, draws another mitzvah. Aveira goreres aveira. One sin engenders another. So you would say a person steals, he will lie under oath. Lies under oath and brings something else. Aveira goreres aveira. What are examples? You see in captivity this attractive woman. You shave her head, you cut her nails. Why? Because Torah says do this specifically, that there should not be no attractiveness to her, that she should not find favor in your eyes. What does it say afterwards? What does the Torah juxtapose to this? Man has two wives. Shtayim babayis. Person has two wives in one household. Meriva babayis. It's inevitable there's going to be quarreling. You have two co-wives, they're going to be quarreling. One could be a beloved one, one could be a despised one. They both may be despised. What does it say afterwards? Person has this rebellious son. The person who marries this type of woman, ultimately, the result will be this rebellious child. Where do we find such a thing? In David, we find this happening with David HaMelech. El shechomad macho bas talmai melech yeshur b'tzeisel milchama, because he desired macho, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur, when he went to war, Yotzmin Avshalom Shabika Shlorgo, ultimately he had Absalom, who was a rebellious son. He wanted to kill his own father. V'shochav im esef pilakshov, Leini kol Yisrael, Leini Hashemish. He openly cohabited with 10 of his father's concubines. Val yodo nergu menu mi Yisrael kamer vavos. There were tens of thousands of Jews killed in battle because of what happened. V'osam achloks b'Yisrael. He caused all kinds of schisms. V'nerek Shimi ben Geiro. V'shevim ben Bichri v'Achitov. These were all the advisors. These were the advisors to Avshalom. L'Mephibosheth, Horag. All kinds of problems. Now, but where did it all start? But if he wouldn't have married, he wouldn't have had an interest in this woman, ultimately he wouldn't have had this child. Avshalom would have never come about. So it seems to Chazal are telling us the Torah permits it. But you could have something which is permitted on a Torah level, but because it has a certain aspect of sinfulness to it, although the Torah permits it because of the circumstance, we say the principle of Avera Guris Avera. It will engender and attract one to something beyond that point. It's interesting. You study the Ramchal, the Mesil Shorim, in his work, Mesil Shorim, or the Chovos HaLevavos, in the Shar HaPrisha, the gate of abstinence, when you abstain from many areas of our life. We wean ourselves from the material, from physicality. What does it do to us? We become less inclined to engage, to indulge in physicality, in the material. He says a person has to reach a level of relevance to material that it should be no different than taking bitter medicine. The person's not well. You have to take medication. Does a person have any interest in, other than to heal himself, to take the bitter potion? That's the only reason. That's when a person eats and drinks, or whatever he does within the physical realm, it's because it's the utmost necessity. It's not when you do it, I enjoy it, but I understand its effect, therefore I'll do it in moderation. No. A person has to reach a level, we're talking about a true porush, a person who abstains, and is at that special level that whatever he does, it's what does necessity mean? He has no relevance, he has no interest, and almost he despises it, he dislikes it, because it's so contrary to his essence, because it's spiritualized to such a degree. Because if a person has any degree of interest in it, if you put into a certain context, you're going to gravitate towards it. This is the concept of precious. Why do we make mistakes? We know that a person who has a conflict of interest is disqualified as a witness. It's called nogea. He's not related, but if he has a conflict. A judge who has any degree of conflict, he's disqualified as a judge. He has to be totally impartial. If there's even the slightest degree of bias or lack of impartiality, he's disqualified as a judge. Because he has to have that level of objectivity. Cannot. Every one of us partaking, enjoying the material, our evaluation process of many things is actually skewed. It's impaired. Because there is a certain undercurrent within every one of us of conflict. We'll say things and justify. We justify many things. We rationalize. A person wants to do a mitzvah lishma. We want to do the mitzvah for the right reason. But there's something that distracts us. But what's distracting us? The continuous undercurrents of interest that we have simultaneous, which draw us away from that. It's not we don't want to do it, the mitzvah with the right intent. But why can't we focus? Because simultaneously there are other things we're focusing on. All these, what are those distractions? The distractions has to do with our essence. What is our essence? We crave the material. Even though we're not talking about like a person's addicted to the material, but there is a certain degree of craving. That craving is a distraction. The person who's truly the porush, the person who's weaned himself from this to a degree It's not only he has control, not only he has no interest, but actually he sees the negativity of it, and therefore when he does partake of it, it's only because it's the utmost necessity. That's the only reason why he does it. A person is at that special level. You go to war, you see a woman. You understand? What does this represent? It represents Yetzer Hara, as it says. The Torah really would have prohibited it. But why did the Torah prohibit it? Because the person, if the Torah would have prohibited it, the person would have violated. So the Torah is saying it's permitted, but in its essence, what is it? It has a certain negative element to it. That negative element seems to be Aver Gores Avera. Because when you indulge, are you doing L'Shem Shamayim? Are you doing it for the sake of God? You're doing it as an indulgent act. Doing it as an indulgent act, that itself generates a degree of impurity or spiritual impurity, which causes the Aver Gores Avera. And look at what happened here. What was the endless tragedies which were consequently as a result of David marrying Machal? Avshalom, but what was Avshalom? Look at the disaster. It was disastrous, beyond disastrous. Maksiv Achrav. What does it say immediately after Ben Sura Morah? The Mishnah tells us in Sanhedrin, a Ben Sura Morah can only be, even if it is something which is applicable, which the Mishnah says it's not possible, to meet all the criteria, to condemn and convict this child, but it's a 3-month window, from the age of 13 when he's an adult, till he's 13 and 3 months. What happens during that period of time? He did not fail to such a degree, or you're not able to convict him. Ultimately, where will this behavior lead him? It will lead him that he'll actually commit a crime, which is going to be put to death. A man there'll be a judgment of death, and he'll be put to death. Although he was not convicted as the rebellious son, but ultimately he's going to be ensnared, and he'll be put to death. Lo madnu. So what do I learn from this? Aveira goreres aveira. One sin engenders another sin, draws to another sin. Or mitzvah goreres mitzvah minayin. From where do we see that one mitzvah engenders another mitzvah, draws another mitzvah? Dichsiv. We have multiple mitzvahs in this parsha. Ki kore kantsipa lefonecha. If you come upon a nest of a bird before you, Shalech teshalach. It says you send away the mother bird, you take the chicks, you take the eggs. Then the verse says, L'man yitavo. It'll be good for you, varachta yomim. You'll have longevity. Achrab baksiv. Then what's juxtaposed to that? Ki sivne bayis chodosh. You'll build a new house. Vosisa makel galgecho. You'll build a parapet on your roof, which is a mitzvah saseh, a positive commandment. So meaning, if you do the mitzvah of shiluch hakan, sending off the mother bird, what will that engender? The mitzvah makeh. But you can't build a parapet unless you have a house. The man can't afford a mortgage. He can't afford the materials to build a house. So how do we implement the concept of mitzvah goreres mitzvah if you don't have the means? No problem. God provides. Why was the material given? Only to facilitate the spiritual. So if the spiritual has to be addressed, God provides the means to build a house. Not a problem. You'll merit to build a new house. V'lasus makeh. You finally built the makeh. So you did a mitzvah saseh. You did the right thing as a Jew. Maksiv achrov. Lo sizur karmachot keloyim. You're not permitted to plant your vineyard where there's a commingling of crops. So the question is, you don't own a vineyard. You don't own a piece of property to plant a wheat field, so it has no relevance to you. Tiske lekerem. You're going to merit, you're going to be able to purchase a vineyard. You become a winemaker. Right? You bottle your own wines with your own labels, with your picture on it. Right? That's what Hashem gives you, the ability. And you merit enough money to purchase a field and to plant the field, cultivate it and sow it. Maksiv achrov. Lo sachrosh b'shor chamor de'achto. You're not permitted to plow with two species, an ox and a donkey. You own no livestock. Tizke l'shvorim v'chamorim. You'll have the means to purchase the oxen and the donkeys. Maksiv achrov, lo sil b'shatnis. You're not permitted to wear a combination wool and linen. You're so impoverished, you can only afford a rayon suit. Has no relevance. Or nylon. Or Sears cotton. Seersucker. What could you do? Tiske lebgodim noim. You merit quality garments. Where they sew the buttons with linen thread onto the wool garment. Meratzemer lebgodim noim mipishnin. You'll be able to afford linen and wool garments. Maksiv achrov. Gedilim taseloch. Can't speak about a four-cornered garment. According to many questions, the way we rule, it has to be a wool garment. If it's any other species, one does not fulfill the mitzvah. The Torah obligation of tzitzis has no relevance unless it's made of wool or linen. You can't afford to get married. Hashem will give you the means you afford to get married. Children. So what do we learn from all the juxtapositions of one after another? Mitzvah goreis mitzvah. One mitzvah engenders another mitzvah. To provide even the material means to be able to facilitate the spiritual, the mitzvah. Aver goreis avero. Lefichoch nismuchu parshios elu zuvuzu. Therefore, the Torah juxtaposes all these negative issues, one following the other, and all the positive, the mitzvahs, following one another, to teach us to really communicate this in the most intense, clear, cogent way, to understand that this is the reality. We do many mitzvahs. We say mitzvah goreis mitzvah. Person puts on tefillin, sends off the mother bird. He's not building a house. He's not. Many things we do. Where do you see mitzvah goreis mitzvah? Where is it? Where's the mitzvah goreis mitzvah? We mentioned a while ago. Gemara tells us a number of locations that what is the antidote to the evil inclination? Torah. Barasi yitzhara, barasi lo Torah tablin. People study Torah, they sin. They do many things. Why is that an antidote? So the Chaim HaKodesh writes in one location, that's only Torah Lishma. You have to study the Torah with that pure intent. If you study it with that pure intent, it generates a level of Kedusha, spirituality, that diffuses, that is the antidote to the evil inclination, which makes sense. Because if you take the Torah and you infuse it with the self-interest, so what are you taking? You take something, a spiritual entity, and you're minimizing it. You're establishing it within the context of physicality, of self-interest. I'm studying Torah shlo lishma. What's shlo lishma? That's limitation. Torah is what is the ultimate. It's unlimited. So therefore, if you engage in something which is so all-encompassing, overwhelming, unlimited, so therefore, it's what? It incapacitates the evil inclination, which is limitation. Evil is limited. But if you've taken the Torah and you've given it a limited context, because you've established it within the human characteristic of it's to serve me, it's self-serving, rather than being selflessly serving, so it doesn't have the effect. You've minimized its value. Now, we have two types of mitzvahs. Mitzvah lishma is doing mitzvah selflessly. I mean, the Seitzei writes in one location, even when you do a mitzvah, you want to share in the world to come, that's classified as lishma. That's doing it for the sake of God, because God wants you to have a share in the world to come. He wants you to have it. But it's not the ultimate lishma. The ultimate level of doing mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah is really as a result of yiras harobos. You're doing it out of awe. I'm privileged to serve God. If that's God's will, it's unrelated to me being a beneficiary of anything. Unrelated to me. Literally, selflessly doing the mitzvah. Why? Because that's the will of God. That's why I'm doing it. That's the ultimate level of Shema. But why is that? Again, as I said, because even when you do it so I should have a share in the world to come, it's still self-serving. And maybe self-serving within a spiritual realm, but what was the impetus? What drew you to that? What motivated you to that? Self-gain. Self-gain is limitation. Selfless gain, selfless where there is no gain, it's purely for God, that's unlimited. So therefore what you achieve, what you bring about, what it produces, what it generates, is a different, another dimension of Kedusha, of spirituality. That's Yiras Aromos. It's out of awe. You feel privileged and I'm able. It's unrelated to me being a beneficiary of anything. Being a beneficiary is I'm privileged because I recognize who God is. It's the ultimate privilege to serve God. And we say this. We say Modim. Give thanks to Hashem. Endless things that He does, provides for us, and facilitates for us, and accommodates us. But what's the ultimate? What's the ultimate thanks? Sha'atohu Hashem Elokeinu. We give thanks to you that you are our God. You know what it means? God is our God. God is the creative existence. God is infinite. God is perfect in the absolute sense. And He goes and chooses us to be His people. And when He says, Bonim, Atem Lashem Elokechem, you're my children. B'ni B'chori Yisrael, you're the equivalent, I will love you as if you're my firstborn. You know what this means? What are we? The Malachim said, Ma'anish Kisis Karenu, this fickle being who's prone to failure. What? He's not even worth mentioning. So this fickle being that's prone to fail, God, the King of Kings, Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mamlech Melochim V'lo Amlucha, He coronates kings and He's the King. He's the Creator. He's everything. Chooses us to be His people. Sha'atu Hashem Elokeinu. He's the God of all existence, but He's Elokeinu. There's a personalization here. You know what that means? So how thankful how privileged do you have to feel? That's the ultimate. Okay? And that's the Yiras Haromos. The mitzvah I do, it's unrelated. That's selfless. If a person truly internalizes that reality, what are you generating with that? You're privileged not because what He does for you, but because of the level of the relationship that you merited, that He took you to be His people. Yisod Rosh Avoda writes in his work that when a person says the bracha, he says a person should dance from joy and ecstasy to a point where you feel like you're going to jump out of your skin. That you don't have enough capacity to contain that joy. You know what I mean? Chose us for all the nations of this world. And what did He do for us? He gave us His Torah. What's His Torah? This is the Kli Chemda. It was created nearly 1,000 generations before existence. And He was waiting for that moment when He could give it to us. This is the Lekach Tov, the ultimate. Rabbi, I have no time to study right now. You know, I'm really in a rush. Lekach Tov nosad lechem. I've been waiting nearly 1,000 generations to give it to you. Asher bocham and kodoslo is Toroso. Yeah, you should be ecstatic. The person that doesn't get the Ali is upset. Asher bocham noslo is Toroso. Where are you studying Torah? You're saying the bracha on the Torah. Noslo is Toroso. How much time do you invest in studying Torah? Where's the Torah? What is it? It's lip service, chas v'sholom. It's being two-faced. It's not being truthful. So why, when we say mitzvah goreis mitzvah, it's mentioned, Chaim Voloshin writes in Nefesh HaChaim, when a person does a mitzvah, what does it do? What do we create? We create a force, a spiritual force. It's based on the Zohar. The majority of that force removes itself from this existence. Goes and it waits the person when he passes away. That's to be the person's olam haba. The world to come, all that spirituality we generate through our lifetimes, and all the mitzvahs, the Torah we study, the majority of that leaves this existence, and it's put on in a holding location for the person. That's your Gan Eden. That's your Olam Haba. That's your spiritualization that gives you relevance to God. But there's a remnant of that remains with you, which engulfs the person, which draws the person to do more mitzvahs. That's mitzvah gores mitzvah. Now the question is, qualitatively speaking, what is the quality and the dimension of that spiritual energy or power that was created when you did the mitzvah? Let's see, the person does the mitzvah, mitzvah noshim l'modo. As the prophet screams about this. It's by rote. The person, after he puts on his tefillin, he tries to remember if he put on tefillin today. So what was the value of that tefillin? Not much. And if a person does the mitzvah, he remembers, but he did it purely for selfish reasons. To pride himself, for financial gain, to ingratiate himself, for acknowledgement. Also, it's more than mitzvah anoshim l'modo. It's more than just going through motions. You have a sense, but it's for selfish reasons, totally for selfish reasons. So the more the person spiritualizes the mitzvah, the greater is the result. The more he infuses, invests in the mitzvah has a different dimension of value. That's what it is. We asked, why don't we say mitzvah versus mitzvah? Why aren't we building houses to build the makkah? Why aren't all these mitzvahs all of a sudden we're being barraged with mitzvahs? Why? We do a mitzvah. All day they should be banging our doors down to do mitzvahs. Where are the mitzvahs? The answer is because the question is, when you did the mitzvah initially, what was the degree of kedusha, of intent that you infused in that action? What was the degree? Person studies, and you interrupt your study with talking other things outside of what the subject matter is about. What we call bittul Torah, interrupting it. Mishnah says a person engages in Torah study and he stops to observe the beauty of a tree. Manoi elon zeh. When you're observing the beauty of creation, God's creation, here you're engaging in the ultimate. How do you interrupt that even to admire God's creation? Even that, there's serious liability. So if you interrupt the Torah study for nonsense, for worthlessness, how much greater is the liability? It not only that, it minimizes whatever you've done. So is there a question why we don't say mitzvah gores mitzvah? With what is it infused? We have a Shmon Esrei. How focused are we? I'll go to Hasidim Rishonim. They would spend an hour prior to engaging in the Shmon Esrei, in the Amidah, to prepare for that. Then, to what degree were they fully immersed, involved in an hour? And afterwards, they would reflect on the experience for an hour. This repeats itself 3 times a day. This is just the Shmon Esrei. It's 9 hours. So the Gemara asks, when did they earn a living? When did they study Torah? Minimally 9 hours a day. You're busy. You're committed to just to the Shmon Esrei. Gemara says the Torah they studied, they were able to understand and retain without much review. The livelihood came easily. Because if you do things right, God's the provider. He gives you ability which goes beyond human capacity. That's the way it is. So what determines the effect and the value of an action? The impact on existence. It's what you invest in it when you infuse in it. So there's no question. Why don't we say mitzvah gores mitzvah? And we say, Gemara tells us also, it's learned from this parsha, it says that a person doesn't build a parapet on his roof. It says, and a person falls to his death. The person, for not building the makkah, the parapet, he's liable. It's as if he caused the person's blood to be shed. But the pasuk indicates the person who falls to his death, he deserved to die. He deserved to die. Because it says the person who falls, the dead person falls. But you only die when you fall. No, he who's meant to die. So Chazal tell us, Rashi cites Chazal, God brings about detriment through a person who's not meritorious. If something tragic has to happen, does it have to happen through you? But yet we have that if something good has to come about, a person who's meritorious, he merits that through him that meritorious act comes about. That is the litmus test. A person who's continuously being barraged with mitzvah opportunities. And he doesn't have an attitude. Why me? What do you want? What is God doing to me? and you embrace it and you value it, it's a phenomenal sign. It means you're doing something right. That's Magalgun Schusay Yidei Zakai. God brings merit to the one who's meritorious. And the other person, he has other issues. He's accident prone. There's something not right there. Why are you accident? Why does everything gravitate to you? All negativity gravitates to you. Evidently, you're doing something not right. You're not worthy. You're not sufficiently meritorious. You know, you have to introspect. And maybe corrections have to be made in your life. It seems to be I'm doing it right. Evidently, it's not so simple. Clear. The Rambam in the Laws of Tshuva writes, Gedola Tshuva Shemekareves is Odom Lashchina. Greatest Tshuva brings a person close to the divine presence. Shenemar Shuva Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecho. Return Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecho, to God. It's, and the Rambam cites a number of verses. Klomar, in other words, what is the pasuk saying? The verse saying, Tarza b'tshuva, that a person repents. Repent means something which is correct repentance. Be tidbok, you'll be able to cleave to me. If you don't repent, you cannot cleave to me. There's a distance. But if you repent, you could cleave to me. Ha-tshuva mekareves es harechokim. Tshuva brings close those who are far away. Emesh, yesterday, what were you? Hoyez esonu lefnei hamokum. He was despised before God, before tshuva. Meshukots. He was seen as something disgusting before God. The word sheketz. Umeruchak, distant from God. Toeva, an abomination before God. God saw you as an abomination. This is yesterday. This is pre-tshuva, pre-repentance. Vayom, but now that you've done tshuva, ahuv, you're beloved, nechmod, you're pleasant, valued, precious, korov, close, you did, you're beloved. Kama mula malos hatshuva, how great is the value of doing tshuva? Emesh hoyezeh muvdol me Hashem Elokei Yisrael. As recent as yesterday, you were separated from God, Hashem, the God of Israel. Shenemar avonosechem hoyim avdilim beinechem bein Elokechem. Your sins separated between yourselves and your God. What does that separation cause? Okay, this is the point. Soek veinu nene. We cry out, falls on deaf ears. Chas v'sholom. Hashem hears, but he doesn't respond. Shenemar ki sirbet tfilo v'osem mitzvos. We do mitzvos. The torfidos of befonov. God throws them back in our presence, or he shreds them in our presence. Toref means thrown, or means toref, shreds them. Shenemar mibike sos miyedchem remos chatzeiroi. The Navi says, who wants you to trespass my courtyard? Not interested in you. Mi gam bochem v'yizkrat olosayim. Vayom hu mudbak b'shchina. After you do tshuva, now you attach yourself to the divine presence. Shenemar atem adveke b'Hashem Elokechem. Now that you're cleaving to Hashem, your God, soek v'nene miyad. When we cry out, Hashem responds immediately, no delay. Shenemar voyaterim yikro v'aniene. Even before they call out, Hashem is already responding. Osem mitzvos umkabel osem benachas simcha. When you do mitzvahs, Hashem receives them with pleasantness, with joy. Hashem rejoices in our mitzvah. It's like a father who loves his child, and he sees the child wanting to accommodate him. The child has tremendous, the father has tremendous nachas, tremendous pleasure, tremendous joy from this. Shenemar kivorotza elokim es masecho. Eloshin misabim lem. Not only God desires those actions. God desires the mitzvahs. Shenemar v'orva l'Hashem minchas Yehuda. The meal offering Yehuda will be orva, will be pleasant. Yerushalayim kimei olam chsharim kamiyos, as in the original days, the days of Adam, before there was even idolatry in existence. God will desire it. That's how special they will be. As it says, Vayorach Hashem reich nichoach, Odom, Noach brought the sacrifices after the Mabul, the great flood. It says he smelt the fragrance of that, and he says he made a covenant with existence and swore he will never destroy the world again with water. It was special. We've discussed this in the past. The text of Rocha, before we do a mitzvah, is Asher Kiddushonu b'mitzvoso v'tzivonu. You've sanctified us with your mitzvahs, and you've commanded us, whatever the mitzvah may be. So how are we sanctified? By doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the means of sanctification. One puts on tefillin, we become sanctified. We put on tzitzis, we're sanctified. We eat matzah, we're sanctified. We sit in the sukkah, we're sanctified. We study Torah, we're sanctified. Okay? But yet, we always say, Kacheni mitzvosecho, v'seichel kein b'sorasecho. We request of Hashem, sanctify us with your mitzvos, and give us our portion in Torah. What are we asking God to sanctify us? If you put your hands in water and your hands become wet, you ask God that your hands should become wet. Factually, when you immerse your hands in water, they become wet. If Asher Kiddushonu mitzvosov mitzivonu, you've sanctified us with your mitzvahs and you've commanded us. You've sanctified us. So doing the mitzvah naturally brings about a sanctification. Why are we asking God, Kacheni mitzvosecho, sanctify us with your mitzvahs? We are sanctified. If you do the mitzvah, you're sanctified. So how do we reconcile the two? The answer is the exact same thing. What is the basis of sanctification? God is the source of all holiness, of all kedusha. Anything that God has relevance to is holy, whether it's locational or personal. God, so how do we sanctify ourselves? How do we merit? What is the conduit? What is the catalyst to bring about that sanctification? We do the mitzvah. When we do the mitzvah, God, we cleave to God. That's a means of cleaving. What if God says, I'm not interested in your mitzvah? He throws it back at us. He shreds the mitzvah before us. There's no linkage. When there's no linkage, we're not sanctified. But the question is, why is there no linkage? The Rambam says why. Because you're not worthy. Before you do tshuva, what are you? You fall out of his good favor. God forbid. You're meshukotz. You're disgusting. You're despised. You're an abomination. Even though chas v'shalom, we're not saying that. But maybe we're not sufficiently in good standing to be worthy of the relationship. So if we're not sufficiently in good standing to be worthy of the relationship, we do the mitzvah, but the mitzvah doesn't allow that cleaving. It doesn't bring about that attachment. So therefore we say every Shabbos and Yom Tov, Kacheni mitzvosecho, sanctify us. Now if you become a receptacle of Kedusha, so where do you put the Torah? Seichel kein b'sorasecho. Now you're a proper vessel to possess the ultimate, what's ultimately holy, which is the Torah. This is the Kli Chemda. This is the gift, the most precious gift that God gave us. This is the Lekach Tov Nosati Lochem. Same thing. The question is, what is the quality of our Torah? We find the Gemara tells us, why was the first Beis HaMikdash destroyed? Oswald Torosi, they abandoned my Torah. The Gemara says, what does it mean they abandoned my Torah? Lo bircha b'Torah tchilo. They didn't say the bircha Torah. It wasn't predicated. What does that mean? They studied. But what is the mindset? As we said, when you do the mitzvah, what is the quality of the service of God? Is it a means of service? Is it self-serving or is it selflessly? Are you selflessly serving? Becoming more knowledgeable. I'll be able to move the masses. I enjoyed intellectualism. Okay? that's the case, it doesn't, that's Osmaris Torosi. It's not an object of Kedusha which allows that linkage. It doesn't allow that linkage. It doesn't allow you to be dovik. You can't cleave to God with that alone. So is there a question? Mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Why is that happening? Let's try to evaluate what is the quality of our mitzvah. Did you do it b'shleimus? Did you do it in a complete state? Was it infused with the intent? Did you have the focus? Did you do it with a joy? Did you do it with a reverence? There's so many aspects to what we call shleimus ha-mitzvah. To do a mitzvah in its most complete sense, it's not. It's interesting. Chaim, their Kriya Shema, mitzvah, twice a day a Jew, male, has an obligation to be Mekabel Olam Al Shamayim, except the yoke of heaven upon himself, the dominion of God. So we have 3 paragraphs of the Shema. The first 2, and then we have the third, which is Seitzei, which we mentioned, Zech Litzis Mitzrayim, the redemption from Egypt. And then, if a person prays privately, he opens the Kriya Shema with Kel Melech Neman. If you daven with a minyan, the Chazan concludes Hashem Elokeichem Emes. What is the value of these additional 3 words? Because if you add up the number of the words in the 3 paragraphs, it's Ramach. It's 248. What's the significance of 248? It means that the makeup of the physical body is 248 parts. So that means you've accepted on every aspect of your being the dominion of God. That is why the 248 is so significant in this context. I've accepted upon every aspect of my being Hashem Echad, the dominion of God. That's what I've done. Now, but also, the Medrash says, Omra Vado, there's a pasuk in Mishlei, Ki Mukol Nishmar Nitzor Libecho, all that you've been commanded, your heart should be vigilant, Ki Menu Totzos Chaim, because from there, that is the outgrowth of this life. Omra Vado, Masai Varbo Mishmona Mitzvah Asay Yishva Torah. Vado says the 248 positive commandments of the Torah, Kimin Eivorim Shabodam, which correspond to the various parts of the human being. Chol Yom Tzogam Al Odam, every day these mitzvahs, they cry out, Aseo Sonu, perform them. Shetichya B'Schiyosenu V'Tarach Yomim, you will live in their merit and you'll have long days. But again, what happens? When a person does a mitzvah, there is a certain correlating factor between the mitzvah and a part of the body. Let's take for instance, tzedakah. You give charity with your hand. So when you take your hand, you do tzedakah, you sanctify your hand. Your eyes, when you study Torah, you sanctify your eyes. Or you look at something, you look at certain things, there's a sanctification. It's a spiritualization of the eyes, of the mind, of the heart. It's like the Shulchan Aruch says that when you put on tefillin shel yad, the hand corresponds to the heart. What are you supposed to think when you put on tefillin shel yad? That you're dedicating all the desires of the heart to be totally subservient to God, the will of God. That's what you do. That's the mindset when you put on tefillin shel yad. So what you're sanctifying the heart. That the desires of the heart, all desire lies in the heart, is sanctified and meshubit. It's subservient to the will of God, committed. And also zech litzis mitzrayim. Think about when you put on tefillin shel rosh, the mind, the brain, the intellect. You're dedicating your intellect to God. So what? The intellectual process is now spiritualized. Just examples. So every mitzvah is a corresponding factor to another part of the body, in the physical sense. So therefore, every aspect of the person is spiritualized. Is spiritualized. And what is the value of the spiritualization process? What is its value? Again, based on the pasuk, the Mark tells us that the David HaMelech, that his legs, his feet, would literally draw him to the base of Medrash. There was literally a magnetic pull. He'd be pulled there. Why? Why was he drawn there? Weren't we? Even not knowing, somehow something drew him there. There was like a magnetism, more overwhelming than magnetism. It was that level of sanctification. But we also do mitzvahs. Maybe the same mitzvahs David did. We do. But could you compare in terms of the dimension and the innate spiritual quality of what he did and what we do? We're talking about infinitesimal is too much to say compared to David HaMelech. So of course, we're talking about here, this is mega doses of Kedusha. David, therefore, of course, his feet led him to the base Medrash. That's where it led him. We read in last week's reading, Parsha, that when you go out to war, the Kohanim announce, and you had the Shotrim, the law enforcers, and they would announce, Mil Isha Shebora Bayis Chodosh Luchanocho, a man who built a new home, new house, and he did not live in it yet. He should return from the battlefront, one who planted a vineyard, and he didn't yet benefit from its produce. He should go back. Man who is recently married, and he's not consummated marriage, he should go back, because he may die in war, and another man may marry his wife. Then they continue. Mio isha yorev v'yiracha levov. The man who's fearful and who's soft-hearted, weak-hearted. Yelech v'yeshosh l'beisov. He should return. V'lo yimas as levav echov kivlo. He should not melt the hearts of his brothers as himself. He's fearful of war. So Rashi cites an argument. What is a yorev v'yiracha levov? What is he fearful of? He can't. The setting of battle is just too much for him. Doesn't have what it takes to go to battle. He just melts out of fear. Reb Kiva Omer, Kimashmo Sheni Yochel Lama Bikushi Lechomo, Luros Cherub Shlupa. He doesn't have what it takes even to see a drawn sword. It's too much for him. Reb Yoskeli Omer no, Hayori Me'aver Shebyodo. Near Yore is being a person who's fearful because of his sins. He feels he's somehow tainted with sin. Why? Because we try to conceal it. We don't want anybody to be embarrassed. Everybody goes back, including these people, but what are they fearful? Because they don't feel they're sufficiently worthy because of the sins they possess that they'll be protected. Okay? So over here there's no Rachaim HaKodesh. Very often we have to look for certain indicators that we're not where we think we are. Okay? We find that when we left Egypt, the Torah tells us, Lo nochem derech eretz plishtim kikorofu. God did not lead us along the Philistine highway kikorofu, because it was close. So simply it means because that route was close to Egypt, and if they be confronted with war, they'll be weak-hearted, they're going back. Maybe you could explain it this way. They were idolaters, and they were just weaned from idolatry. So what happens? Due to the Eser Malkos, the 10 plagues, they saw openly the hand of God, and finally it culminated with bringing the Korban Pesach, with the Paschal Lamb, which was a total negation and separation from the deity of Egypt. Now they became full monotheists. But even though today you're a full believer, but still, you still have an Achilles heel, that the slightest degree of negative influence, you could actually have revert back to where you came. You could have a regression over here. You could have a spiritual relapse. Now, how do you prevent that? We don't want to expose you to anything which has a semblance of your previous environment. So let's say I take you along the Philistine highway. You're exposed. They're idolaters. We're talking about it's a pagan civilization. Since it's recent, since your transition from pagan to monotheist is so recent, we can't take a chance. You have to be in your own environment over an extended period of time to become secure in your new belief. Because it's recent. But you can say also Korafu. But what is that indication? Why? Because it's still close to you. It's still close to your heart. Paganism is still close to your heart. Very often we believe we're at a certain level, advanced in spirituality. But yet, even though we don't transgress chas v'sholom, but we have temptations. But if you are who you think you are, and you believe you are, what are you looking over there? And why are you considering, why you think about something? Maybe you're not who you think you are. You're not as far as you think you are from what that is. You're pretty close. Therefore, whatever it takes to advance yourself spiritually, you have to whatever you need to advance yourself. You're not quite far enough at a distance from where you should be. Because otherwise you wouldn't be thinking about these things. God forbid I would have considered doing it. But do you think about it? But thinking about it, that's korov. That's an indication it's korov. You're close to it. That's an indication. A person is fearful of sin. So he cites a Gemara, the Orachaim, a Gemara in Soto. Gemara says, Zayore ma'aver shebiyado. A person is fearful of sins that he possesses. And it cites a posuk. Pochtu b'tzion chatoim. Who in Tzion was afraid? The sinners. Shkol mishish biyado averos. A person who possesses sin. Libo yori v'chored miyatzo. A person is fearful. A person who's tainted with sin has fear. You're afraid. Not because you're afraid because of the sin necessarily. Because you feel you're not going to merit divine protection. No, factually, you experience fear. He's not even aware that he sinned. But if fear enters in your heart when you're on the battlefront, that's the indicator that you have sinned. Because if you were sin-free totally, you would not be fearful even on the battlefront. Although he only violated a rabbinic law of speaking between Psuki de Zimra and Birchas Kriyashma, before Yotza Ma'oros, Yishtabach and Yotza or Barichoshe. Even that is enough to what? To bring about a degree of impurity that cause fear. When you go to war, you have to be meritorious, to be worthy of a miracle. To be saved from the sword of the enemy. A person who's tainted with anything which is a representation of evil, which is sin, and royalness. You're not worthy of a miracle, but how do you know that? But one's neshama is able to detect that. One's mazel is able to detect that. So even though you have no sense, you believe you're as pure could be. You know, for the past year you've been working and you've been striving and been this and that, but who really knows? We always look for indicators. Interest is an indicator. Why do you have an interest in that? Why did you pick your head up? Why this? But I'm so humble. So why does it bother you when people don't acknowledge you if you're so humble? When a person walks into a room, everybody's acknowledging. He says, please, you're embarrassing me. Man's so humble. Next day he walks into the room, nobody looks at him. He's upset. He's offended. What's happening? That's the litmus test. Or somebody else is acknowledging, you're not acknowledged. But if you're so humble, why does it bother you? Even it may be a flicker of bother. Passing, fleeting moment of bother. Doesn't make a difference. But that tells you you're not there where you think you are. And we have to look for these indicators. And when we look for these indicators, we work on it. And we have to advance ourselves. Whenever we speak about these portions, Kisikar of the Muhammad, or any of these, based on the illusionary level, it's always speaking about the greatest battle of a person's life is not a physical battle. It's a spiritual battle. That's the greatest battle. And whatever means you have to resort to be victorious in that battle, that's the only way. That's the only way you can be victorious. The Mesus Hashem writes, the Ramchal writes, Chazal, we have the Masorah. God says, God himself is a test. I've created the inclination, evil inclination. I'm telling you factually, the only antidote is Torah. Nothing else. Torah Lishma. Person, God forbid, it comes down, is diagnosed with cancer. Doctor says you have to undergo very serious chemotherapy. Says, doctor, what can I take? Aspirin and eat organic fruit. Because if you understand the nature of the disease, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you as much as an iota. God says, but I'll be a tzaddik. I'll say Kriya Shema with tremendous kavanah. It's not going to help you. Barasi Yitzer Barasi Torah Tati. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Qualitative Torah, that's the only antidote. That's the only thing which can give you a sense of truth and clarity, and that's what incapacitates the evil inclination. That's the spiritualizing force. That's fact. So many things. Well, we'll address it. How are you addressing it? And this I always say, Chazal tells Asay l'charav, K'nei l'chochover. Who's the expert? The Rambam writes in Hilchos Deos, as you have Cholei Haguf, illnesses, physical, you have Cholei HaNefesh. And as you seek out the Cholei Haguf, physical illnesses, you seek out a doctor who's the expert in the physicality of the person. We have to seek out the Chazal, the Chachomim, who they have an understanding of the spiritual illnesses. That's what it's, that's a Seil Charav. How do I address it? What do I do? How do I get the diagnosis? People, they're self-diagnose. You know, they think they do this, they're ready, they're flying high. They're ready to tzaddik. You know, I feel spiritualized. I feel this. I just came back from Israel. I'm all turned on. Turned on to what? It's all emotional. It has to be real. But who can make that diagnosis? Who can make that evaluation? That is the Asay L'Charav. If you have the Asay L'Charav and he advised you correctly and qualitatively you invest in your spirituality, then we can talk about that Barasi Yitzhara, Barasi Lo Torah Tavli.